Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of the Blacklist, Season 9, Episode 5. Benjamin T. Okara, we are here. We are talking all about this. We have a very, very big reveal. We also have much ado about nothing with the Blacklister story.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about this last week, that the blacklisters of the week, eh, but we're starting to get some better mysteries going
Yeah,
on. That was my big thing that I've been missing this season, is sort of a bigger overall mystery. And now it seems that we might have something at least for one more week, if not for hopefully longer.
yeah,
What's in the box that Reddington gave to Dembe? We want to hear about it from you guys in the comments. We'll give our ideas
yes,
as well. But before we get into that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are here every Thursday talking about the
yes,
Blacklist, except for next week because it is American Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving
yeah.
out there to everyone who is celebrating it.
Yeah, check out our Instagram because at Matt and Jess
Mhm.
TV, we will chronicle our Thanksgiving. A lot of good stuff that is happening there.
Yep, including a cheese ball that's going to look like a turkey. We will see if it actually ends up looking like that. I have this idea
Yeah,
in my head. We will see if it's executed. It will be up at Matt and Just TV.
it is going to work.
At least it will be delicious, and it involves a Slim Jim.
It will be delicious and it will work. And also, you know what else is going to work in that box? Is Liz Keen's frozen cryogenic head. There, that is where we're going, everyone.
Okay, let's start out with the box because I think
Yes.
that's the thing that all of you are probably going to be wondering about as well.
Yeah.
So there was this sort of flashback scene with Red and Dembe where Reddington gave him this box and
Yeah.
basically said, "The day that you decide that you are out with me, open this box." And then we saw him opening this box and crying at the end of the episode. What do you think is in the box?
Yeah, okay. So Dembe's not a crier. I think we've established this.
No.
So whatever this is, like there's a part of me that thinks it has to be somewhat related to Dembe's own past, and we're gonna get sort of a Dembe origin story out of this, because I did think about what if it is Reddington's true identity, and then it's
Mhm.
just sort of like, okay, number one, why would Reddington tell this to somebody who is going to be leaving his employ and like going off somewhere else? And number two, why would Dembe cry about that? Like I would be like, ah, if that was revealed. I wouldn't cry.
No, I wouldn't cry, but at the same time, we don't know what happened between Dembe and Reddington. And it could very well have to do with Liz and what happened with Liz. And I know that so far this season, they've mentioned her maybe twice. Like,
Yeah.
really, it's almost like it never happened. But maybe they are building this up into something a bit more. Maybe between Dembe and Reddington, the thing that pulled them apart was this, because we saw in the finale last season this sort of real push from Dembe to sort of get Reddington to just tell Liz the truth. And
Yeah.
he came up with this letter idea and was like, okay, you can give this to her after she kills me and on and on. But I mean, they were really butting heads on that. Then Liz dies. It is possible that during those few months before they split, that it was just coming to a head over and over and over again before it was a real blow up. I think that what is in this box
Yeah.
does have to do with his identity and what wasn't told to Liz, but will be told to Dembe. That's my hope. That's what
Yeah.
I think.
And I hope it's connected to we've all talked about this on the channel before, many, many, many years ago, how Dembe and Reddington once had a conversation sort of suggesting that if Liz ever knew the truth about what happened with Katarina, that Liz would never forgive Reddington for it, and maybe Dembe was there when that sort of truth was revealed. I mean, I'm not trying to get down the, Reddington is Katarina or not Katarina rabbit hole again here or whatever, but if Reddington is not Katarina, which I believe Reddington is not Katarina, despite whatever evidence is out there, maybe the contents of this box actually share a truth about Katarina. Maybe this is like an explanation as to where Katarina actually is if she's still alive.
What I think that 5 minutes into this video
Yeah.
that this box has symbolized for me, and
Yeah.
I won't speak for you, but the idea that I am missing this bigger type story and arc with the show. I really am. I mean, it's the past couple seasons, especially, have gotten so deep into this. Who is Reddington? Who is Reddington to Liz? This big overall mystery. And this season, it's just not there. It's
Yeah.
not there. So they're going to bring up this mystery box, and right away, my mind is like, oh, this has to be connected. It
Yeah.
has to be connected. They can't just have forgotten everything that we've all been on this journey with for 8 seasons. All of a sudden, it's just poof.
Yeah.
This box gives me hope that there's still a tie-in. Right? Or am I on an island,
You're
you
not-
guys? Let me know.
Okay, I'm at least on the island with you in that I think if this box has nothing to do with Red's identity or nothing to do with the mythology and it's just something plucked out of nowhere, I think it could suck if that's happening, to be totally honest, because then it's just sort of like, okay, if this is so important and Dembe is crying over it, why did they not bring this up in the first 8 seasons of the show? Why was this somehow completely and totally insignificant? They would have to sell me really, really hard on that all of a sudden something this big and this emotional is coming up.
The only other thing that feels like at this moment, we just finished watching it, that would be satisfying is what you said. If this is something about Dembe's past, something that he's needed to know about himself, that maybe he doesn't know about his family, about something else, then I would be satisfied with that as well. I love the Dembe character, so if it's going to be more about him, getting to know him, something about himself, I'd be okay with that too. But I really need the past 8 seasons to have mattered.
Yes.
They can't just not matter in this season.
Yeah, and if it's something that gets us closer to a truth, or at least allows us to connect the dots of what Dembe knows versus what we know, I will be happy with that. And I will say, in general, this is the moment that made me the happiest during this episode, mostly because of what you said. We finally have like something to dive into here and think about and pontificate over.
Yeah, and we at least had sort of a couple more moments, at least in the past, with Reddington and Dembe where they were getting along. And this episode had some tough moments for me because seeing the two of them not getting along and not really being on the same page anymore, I haven't liked it. I'm never going to lie to you guys about that. I'm not liking it. I'm not enjoying them being at odds.
I think it's a situation where we're all kind of craving some familiarity with this show. They've already taken away that like big central mystery, and now we've already lost Liz, who, you know, love Liz or hate Liz, Liz was a driving force of the show, and without Liz there is sort of this rudderless feeling. So to then also be like, okay, now we're gonna take Dembe and Red, this dynamic duo, and have this weird sort of tension between them that spawned out of something in Brasilia that you guys aren't bothering to really explain. It's frustrating to not have those sort of answers.
Yeah, especially when we have Reddington giving these sort of quips to Dembe, basically being like, oh, I can't imagine my life without these two women by my side. It's kind of like, okay, Reddington, you need to take a couple seats. These women have been with you for like a year or a year and a half.
Yeah.
You've been with Dembe for like years upon years upon years.
Yes.
Like, you don't also need to be rude to him. Whatever's happened between you guys, you have friendship for years. Like, I understand you guys are hurt, but you got to find a way to still give the audience a little bit of that love between you guys. I need it.
Yeah. It's the emotional undercurrent of Reddington, the character, that he has this heart underneath, you know, this persona. Okay,
and then there's everything going on with the two women that he's with now, where it seems like he's sleeping with one of them or both of them. I mean, we saw Weecha pull out her guns again. I was like, okay, is it cool? And then he grabs her arm and puts it around him, and then he's got the other woman at the end being like, come to bed, Reddington. Like, it's always fun for me to see James Spader in a role where he's got people all around him that he's sleeping with. all of his movies. He's got super sex appeal. It's something that you think of James Spader, you think of sex appeal. It's just the way that it is. So to have that sort of brought into the show more than it has been, I'm a fan of that. I'm not going to lie about that either. I like seeing him sort of have relationships and stuff like that. However,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be at the expense of Dembe.
I just don't think we need both women, if I'm being honest. I just feel like, it feels a little bit too much like, okay, here's these two characters, and because they're both splitting time, we don't really get to know either one of them all that well. I would have been fine if it's just one, though. Yeah, you guys playing up the Spader Lothario-ness of it all. Like,
That's right.
Yeah, like, this is, I think, very much pleasing to a lot of fans out there. There you go. Okay. Now we get to there's a minute long rant here that's about to happen.
Here we go.
So the Blacklister is totally pointless. It was a waste of time. It was completely and utterly just awful. Like, and this is the thing. Like last week, interesting idea, interesting concept. You got this like weird dude with electromagnetic weapon powers. This feels almost like a comic book. And then, as it turns out, he just takes his own life. He kills everybody else to make sure that they don't get this. Reddington doesn't seemingly get anything out of this. The task force didn't actually do anything at all because he took his own life anyway, regardless. So we went nowhere. Here is where the episode started. Here is where the episode ended, everyone. I guess it had a couple of interesting moments, but this show needs the Blacklisters to matter. We've already wasted time talking about it in this video because it was a waste of time on the show.
I'm not a fan of this week's Blacklister. I wasn't a fan of last week's either. It does feel like they are not connecting to Reddington the way that they used to. It used to be sort of, there was a pattern to it where Reddington would bring them a Blacklister. The FBI would help find that Blacklister. Reddington would get something out of it. The FBI would get something out of it. And it doesn't really feel like that's happening the same way anymore.
Yeah.
Reddington's not really running his own empire anymore. Now he's the Skinner, and he brought that back up again tonight where someone was kind of like, listen, you haven't been around for a couple of years. You don't really have any clout anymore. And he's like, well, I'm actually the Skinner, so I have all the clout. But it's like he's the head of someone else's organization. It's not the head of his own empire anymore. So it's a bit different.
I want to live in a world where just because you have a tattoo of something, you automatically have more clout. Like, what if I had, like, FBI tattooed on my arm? It was like, FBI. Would everyone then just immediately believe me? Like, what if Reddington just went and got that tattoo? I'm just saying.
I have a tattoo of Saturn, so I have the clout of space.
There, you could say you are an astronaut and that you have traveled to Saturn. Because this is apparently how this works in the Blacklist world. Okay, listen, there's one thing I liked about Benjamin Okara here.
All right.
Summa cum laude. I don't know what that... See, there we go. There we go. That is the only thing I have in common with you, Benjamin T. Okara. And also, I am alive and you are dead.
All right, let's also get into the Cooper of it all.
Yeah.
So it seems that he decided not to go into the police station after all and not have that conversation. He later talks to Charlene about it, and she's really kind of pushing him to do it. She's kind of like, listen, it's better that you just go and deal with it than them come to you, and then you're kind of caught with your pants down. And that's not a good look. It's better just go in and be like, hey, I'm here to help out. This is what's happened. Let's put all the information out. Cooper did something really strange. He lied, and that's not something that he really does that often. He told Detective that he was with Charlene during the period of time that he was missing and asked Charlene to lie for him, which it seems that she did, and now it's caused a really bad problem in their relationship.
I was fascinated by how all of this played out because it did go against my expectation for Cooper. I think my takeaway on it is that, okay, Cooper is afraid and Cooper is human too. You strip away the, I am a man of honor sort of veneer here, and underneath there is still, this little boy who's just like huddled in a corner afraid that a monster is going to come in and take him away. And I appreciate seeing that vulnerability out of Cooper. It makes for an interesting story moving forward. It gives us something more to talk about.
I think the problem for Cooper is just, I think he knows in his heart of hearts he didn't do this. Charlene even
Yeah.
said, this was 8 years ago. Are you going to wake up 8 years later and go and kill this guy? Like, it's a little late in the game for that. I don't think any of us believe that Cooper did this. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't do this. And I think he knows he didn't do this. But if he doesn't have an alibi, it doesn't matter. Like, the bullet came from his gun. He's missing for those hours. He's done it. It's enough that they can probably weave something around him, and he knows it.
Yeah. Cooper's been around the block long enough to know that he's in trouble, regardless of if he did it or not. I
Yeah.
think he's clearly desperate. And I do think this is a good mystery. I'm glad that Cooper is getting a long term story. The one thing that they could have done to make this even better was just give us a little clue as to who could be responsible for this. Because then, entering the hiatus, much like we did with the box, we could be on here talking and reacting to all of that, especially if it's someone tied to the past. And they kind of missed it just a little bit on that.
The person that I'm going to assume you guys think is the person who's framing him as Charlene. I've heard it a lot of times in the comments. I've seen it all over Twitter. And this episode didn't do any favors to Charlene for that theory. I mean, they kind of made her look a little bit sketchy. And some of the ways that she was acting and what she was doing, like, why wouldn't she just want to protect her husband? She knows that Cooper didn't do this. Everybody knows that Cooper didn't do this. And she's pushing for him to go to the police station to turn himself in. It's like, why? Are you doing this because really you want him to help and get it cleared up? Or are you setting him up? I don't think that she's setting him up because I just don't know what the motive would be. It's like, it is 8 years later. Like, what's the motive? None of this makes any sense that she would be behind this.
Yeah, it's too far out of left field without additional information. And it's like, I want to buy into the idea that Panabaker is the person responsible for this. But that's just because we saw Panabaker being mean earlier this year. And I don't know if Panabaker being mean equals motive to have him framed for murder. That's a very hard thing to sort of just like connect there.
All right, so let's also talk about Park. Last week we said she's probably pregnant, and this week she was pregnant. So as it's turned out, we've now met her husband, Peter, and things did not end up going all that well for Park. Park ended up in the hospital. Peter was there, found out that she's been lying to him, still out in the field. Plus, she was pregnant. Plus, now she is not pregnant. And I mean, all of those things together is, I mean, I don't know where this marriage goes from there. The losing the baby is one thing. The lying about going to a job that you're not going to and you're really doing something else, that's a really big lie. I don't know how you really get past that in a marriage.
Yeah. And I know she said that she's afraid of, losing her control and sort of going haywire like she's been in the past and all of that. But Peter is, your husband. And I think your husband, accepts you good and bad, accepts you through it all. And I think if you're not going to sort of talk to him and be upfront with him, who can you be upfront about? And that's my problem with this whole storyline, is just that I don't care about Park's marriage, and I'm not trying to be mean to Park and her husband here. It's just like we barely know her husband. We don't really even know Park that well and compared to like everyone else, and she's getting this much more substantial storyline at this point than Aram, who had almost like nothing to do in this entire episode.
Aram had the same thing he was doing in the last episode. Hey, Cooper, you all right? Hey, Cooper, you want to talk? I'm here anytime you need to talk. He did that again in this episode, and I just rolled my eyes. I'm like, give him something to do. He doesn't need to be the guy who just follows Cooper around and asks him if he's okay or not. But, I mean, everything with Park, her story is just not coming together for me. And the fact that this episode, too, she just is lying to everybody. Wrestler even called it out too. It's just kind of like, everyone's getting the lies. Like, I feel like I'm not able to get to know her either because I don't know who she's lying to, what she's lying about,
Yeah.
who's getting the truth, who's getting a lie. Like, all of it is so strange. Like,
Yeah.
even down to this pee test. She did the same test that wrestler did, and nothing came back for her. And then he did it. He must have done it like a week or two later.
Yeah.
It had to have been long enough for it to register that she was pregnant because, man, like, her test was fine. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now you have a tumor. It's just like, what? She did the same test.
Yeah, it's hard to track, and it's just sort of, if a story's not developed to a point where, you know, it's easy for us to sort of follow it along, it gets kind of muddy when you're a viewer sort of watching it, trying to connect everything, especially when it's a character like Park, who we just don't have that investment in, and we would rather be watching Reddington and some other people, which, speaking of which, Brimley's son here, little Brimley.
Little Brimley.
Where is the goat? I am so upset that I did not get to see a goat in this episode of the Listen, I wanted more of Brimley's son, to be honest. Like, it was kind of a weird dude. I would have been happy we got more of that and a little less of some of the other stuff.
Oh, Brimley's a weird dude too. So, I mean, it works out well. I like that his son had his own thing and that it was, you know, yeah, your parents would be proud. And he was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, good for you.
Can we have the Brimley family spinoff? I want to see what did they raise? Son, we're gonna make you into a torturer someday. We're gonna show you the ropes.
Yeah.
Such a weird bit, but okay. I think this episode set up more exciting stuff than any other episode this season, and I think for like that reason, it probably had higher highs than anything else this season.
Yeah, those last few minutes with that box and that mystery, I'm very excited about it. I think that there's the potential for a lot there. If they wrap it up in the next episode after Thanksgiving, I'm not going to be that pleased.
Yeah.
However, don't drag it out for 8 seasons and then never reveal it. I'm not into that either. You have to reveal it.
All right, well, let us know. What do you guys think is in the box? Why do you think it is Liz Keen's frozen head? Be sure to share it in the comments and also subscribe. Hit that like button. Check out our other coverage of Dexter New Blood, of Succession coming up this weekend, and we will see you here next time.